from the land of mystery, where dreams become reality, always listening to stories from the past, the present, and the future. This is Back to Your Story.
Starting off with the White Claw.
There we go. Fucking like the White Claw, right, baby?
Yep.
How we doing?
Doing well, man.
Fucking awesome, man. A little stressed out, I have to say. Trying to set up the camera for the first time.
Yep.
And
It's been a process.
Yeah, definitely. I do appreciate you being so cool about the whole process.
Yeah, I love the setup here. It's very professional, actually.
Thank you. It's it makes me happy, man. It's like this is my little my safe space.
Yeah, I feel that.
I feel like every day when I walk into it, it just feels awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, man. For anyone that is listening right now, why don't you give them a little brief introduction about yourself?
Sure, happy to.
All right.
So my name's Stephen Gizzi, and just moved up to Santa Clarita and met this fine fellow here.
Ooh.
That was a highlight for sure.
Yes.
I'm a musician. I work mostly as a composer. I write a lot for film and television. So I'm a composer. I am a recording artist. I also teach music lessons, private lessons, piano,
Beautiful.
guitar, music production, anything goes sort of. And, just all around entrepreneur in the music industry,
Nice.
kind of down for anything that comes my way.
There we go. That's what I like to hear. You're a man of many skills. Growing up, was music always a thing for you? Did you just hop on a guitar or keyboard one day and it felt right? How'd that work out?
It's interesting, actually. My dad loves to tell. This is one of those dad stories that he said it so many times throughout the course of my life that I know it verbatim. And of course, it's fresh for each new person that hears it, but I've heard it a million times, right?
I love it.
Yeah, neither of my parents are musical.
Okay.
And no one in the immediate family is musical, so it wasn't necessarily a family influence. Of course, I grew up listening to, all of my parents' favorite records, so a very rich sort of musical history just as a listener.
Nice.
But one day, there were no music instruments in the house or anything, and one day my dad just decided to buy a keyboard, and it was a cheap little thing. Not a full keyboard.
Yeah.
A full keyboard's 88 keys,
Okay.
right? And so this was probably not even 60.
Okay.
And just really cheap. It was one of those ones that has all those dinky sounds,
I remember.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
I had one too.
And so he had in the back of his mind, he was in the store one day and he saw this keyboard, and he worked for Circuit City at the time.
Okay.
And one day when he was at the office, there was just this seminar, and this guy came in. I think the guy worked for Disney or something.
Nice.
And this guy came in and he just gave a talk about what he called the kitchen of the mind.
The kitchen of the mind. I
Kitchen
like
of the
that.
mind. Yes. And basically, it was the idea that it wasn't specifically only focused on parenting, but this was an application for it. If you are a parent and you're raising a kid and you want to kind of figure out what is best for them, what's their interests,
Okay.
you construct in your house somewhere sort of a kitchen of the mind.
Beautiful. I love this.
And it's just sort of this room where you have sort of a cornucopia of different things, like a microscope maybe, like a musical keyboard, some various kind of educational toys or whatever, just a whole bunch of things. And rather than forcing your kid to do that, you just kind of set these things up in the house and you let the kid sort of discover it on their own and see if it takes with them.
I love that. I freaking love that. That's awesome.
Yeah. And so that was his philosophy that motivated him to buy this keyboard. He just set it up in my room, and I don't think I touched it for maybe 2 years. It just sat there.
For sure. Collecting dust.
Yeah. But it was there, and it was always, I saw it every day.
Yes.
Right? So it was always on my mind. And one day I think he said, "Stephen, have you ever considered taking lessons? Would you like music lessons?" And I said, no, Dad, I already know exactly how to play this.
You said that?
Yeah, I was apparently a very cocky 8-year-old.
Okay, very nice.
So I was like, no, I know exactly how to play this. And I start as if I'm trying to like prove my point to him, as if I'm possibly going to be able to convince him.
Yes.
Right. I start playing, and of course it's terrible. Yeah. And he's like, "Stephen, sometimes we don't know what we don't know."
I like that. Yeah.
So why don't we just try out some piano lessons, see how it goes. You can see if you like it. And so I was 8 years old at the time. So I started piano when I was 8.
Okay.
And that I've been doing it ever since. There was a period when I hit middle school, you hit puberty.
Yeah.
You're trying to be sexy, you're trying to get chicks, etc. I didn't think the piano was the cool instrument anymore. I switched to guitar. Well, I kept doing piano, I should say, but I picked up guitar. I started taking some guitar lessons, because you see those guys play at the sixth grade talent show, and you're like,
that's what I want to be.
Yeah,
I get it.
So, and looking back, that was great because now I'm able to play guitar as well.
Sure.
But so temporarily focused more on guitar, but it's always been the piano from day one.
Wow, that's incredible. The kitchen of the mind. At 33 years of age, I have never heard of that before.
And I've never heard it in any other context either.
But you really have to think, if you want to introduce new things to your kid, instead of forcing them, for me growing up, there was this forceful approach. Okay. It was just kind of shoved in my face. You had to do this. It was my way or the highway. And as a kid, when you get things shoved in your face instead of taking it head on, what do? You run the opposite direction.
Yeah.
This happens a lot. And by having a kitchen of the mind to really allow a kid to be able to figure it out on their own, to see what they like and what they don't like, that's something that, for me, I'm never going to forget. So when I have a kid, I don't want to take that forceful approach. I want to create a kitchen of the mind.
Yeah.
So it's really brilliant.
It's something that I'd love to do with my kids too. And something that I got to give a lot of credit to my parents for that sort of philosophy. And another thing that they tell me, every so often is, Stephen, I hope you are, I know you want to have kids someday. And, I know that there are probably some good things and some bad things on the way that we parented you, and, I hope that you're always just sort of watching and listening. And, I hope that you take whatever valuable lessons you think that we gave you, and also kind of learn from any mistakes that you think that we've made.
Wow.
And kind of, and it's just so profound thinking that way.
Absolutely.
Because it frees you up to sort of have that vulnerability with it.
Yes.
And it's not mandated like that.
No.
There are no sort of mandated expectations like that.
Absolutely. It's very impressive that your parents have this type of philosophy, because in life, we can take anything out of any situation, and to be so open that knowing that every choice and decision that they made wasn't 100%, and to be able to recognize that. It's very profound. So your parents sound pretty awesome, and it just goes to show, for the brief amount of time that I've known you and the type of person that I think that you are, it definitely shows. We are a product of our environment. We are a product of how we were brought up, and for you, it sounds like it's been a really cool journey. It's been something for me from the moment I met you that kind of connected us, because when Alex introduced us, it was, for the thought of, one, introducing us, but also to bring you on this podcast. Where did you grow up? I mean, because you're in Santa Clarita now, but you're relatively new.
Yeah, it's been a journey. I grew up in Richmond, Virginia.
Okay.
Was born there, and I lived there until I was 18. So my whole adolescence there. And when I went to college, I went to the University of Miami. So I moved down to Miami, Florida.
Nice.
And spent 4 years there.
I don't know, nice,
it was nice.
But still, it's Florida. Let's just be honest. It's Florida.
Yeah. and of course, everybody always has that reaction. Like, oh man, it must have been so great, like partying every day. It's a great town to be a tourist in.
Yes, exactly.
For a week.
Yes, for 1 week. Florida definitely has that vibe. I mean, as you know, I lived in Florida for 4 years, right. And no disrespect to the people of Florida, but it's just it should be its own country. It's definitely unique and different, all in its own way. But so you went to the University of Miami.
Yes.
And then what was next?
So I went there and I studied music, by the way, there.
Makes sense.
When I was looking at colleges That was the main thing I was looking for. And I didn't want to, most universities that have a music program, they sort of have like a conservatory program, which is classical music.
Yes.
Right. And I was trained classically, by the way. So that is my foundation. But by that point, I had sort of, I don't want to say moved on because I still love and play classical music a lot, but I had sort of expanded, let's say, right? And so I was very much into writing, modern music, writing my own, as an artist, coming up with my own stuff, and sort of producing my own stuff, mixing it from the ground up, like doing the whole production, right?
Beautiful.
And so a lot of, there's a lot of music schools around the country, but a large majority of them do not have that kind of program. It's classical and maybe it's jazz.
Okay.
Right. And so I looked at, there were a few standouts. There was the University of Miami, there was Berklee College of Music in Boston, which is a big one. There's USC out here.
Yeah.
Right. So, so I kind of had to spread the net across the nation rather than just all the local Virginia schools.
Yeah.
So I went to college for music down there in Miami. And then right when I graduated, I moved out here to LA. I had, in kind of the summers between school years, I did come out here like the last 2 summers in between school years.
Nice.
And I worked as an intern. Through this connection with a professor of mine at the college, I was able to get this sort of assistant intern position with a composer out here, a film composer. And so I interned here a little bit, and then right when I graduated, moved out to LA, lived in the Valley for 3.5 years or so.
Okay.
And then just moved up here.
Wow. And you are 27?
I'm 27.
27 years old. That's incredible. Did you always know that you wanted to come to LA? Was that always the, just kind of the dream of yours, if you will?
No, it wasn't actually. The dream to move to LA really came out when there was the decision to focus on writing music specifically for movies or for TV or whatever. And so, of course, Hollywood's out here. The TV movie industry's out here.
Absolutely.
So that was sort of a given once that was established. But I didn't kind of come to that decision until halfway through college, really.
Nice.
I knew that I wanted to be a composer, and I knew that I wanted to find some kind of career that involved me writing my own stuff a lot. I had steered away from sort of the classic, I want to be a touring artist direction a few years prior. I did have that sort of motivation initially, but... So as soon as I made that decision, it was like, well, I should at least try. I should at least see what LA is like.
For sure.
So that's why I went out and interned and did the whole thing. And, so that experience was enough to make me feel a little better about coming up. Because that's a big move,
It's a huge move. It's huge move. I mean, especially for you. How old were you at the time?
I was like fresh out of college, so I was 22.
22 years old, to be able to... just take that leap, take that risk of coming out here. Because the music industry is, everyone knows if you're in it or not, it's a cutthroat industry. It's very, very hard to get past that, even that initial barrier to even turn it into a career. And at 22 years old, fresh out of college, not to go back home and try to figure it out from there. I mean, it's brilliant, because at 22 years old, there is no way in hell I would have made that leap, and especially on your own. I mean, you weren't in a relationship at the time, were you?
I was actually.
Oh, okay.
I was in a relationship with a girl in Miami at the time, and so I moved out here, and she was still in Miami.
Okay.
And so we actually did a long distance thing for a while.
Nice. And how'd that work out?
I have to. Well, first of all, I'm no longer in the relationship.
Okay.
But it was actually, I think we did it really well. I think we did the long distance thing really well. The reason that we broke up is not because of the distance exactly. Like, that was never a fun thing to have that distance, but that wasn't, I wouldn't say that was the death of the relationship.
Okay.
So I was in a relationship at the time, and we kind of agreed to do this thing, and that was actually, it wasn't a huge source of stress, I gotta say.
Good.
And that's a credit to her, not a discredit to her.
Yeah, for sure.
It was the way that we held together on that was really great, I think.
That's awesome. Long distance relationships can be very challenging. My wife and I, when we were younger, we did a year apart. When I first moved to Florida, she stayed out here, and it was very challenging, especially for me. I was a young growing boy, and I wasn't thinking with my brain at all times. I was thinking with another head, and so it definitely caused some issues. And she eventually came out there. But it can be challenging. So to hear that, that wasn't the reason that you guys split up, kudos to her, kudos to you. But kind of getting back to the story, going through the experience of moving out here, because you still were on your own, even though you had a girlfriend back there, which actually makes it harder, right? Because you're leaving something. What was that like when you first got to California? Was it like, fuck yes, I'm here? Or was it like, what the fuck am I going to do next?
Yeah, that's a good question. Let's see. Well, it's a huge fish out of water sensation.
Yeah.
Right. And it still feels that way now, honestly, of course, right? Like,
That's
I don't know if that ever goes away. I don't know if it has in your experience or not.
I mean, yeah, it has.
There's always sort of for me at least, there's always sort of a feeling of like, trying to put up a face of like looking like I know what's going on.
Yes. Yeah.
But 22 years old in the big city. Yeah. That was, I had that assistant position that I had with that film composer ended up yielding me some more work.
Okay.
So I had the work situation at least partially figured out.
That's awesome.
And I was able to live super cheaply. I was subletting a room in a place in Woodland Hills. Beautiful. And was able to live super cheaply for years. So I was able to keep my overhead expenses pretty low.
Nice.
That was super helpful. I kind of as just a side hustle just to get some more income going, sort of just it wasn't something that I had really planned on, but I started teaching private music lessons.
Nice.
I was at just a friend's place in Woodland Hills, and I ran into a woman there, a mutual friend of theirs, and we started talking, and it came out that I was a musician and all, and she just said, "Hey, would you like to teach my two boys how to play piano?" Right?
Wow.
And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, yeah, sure, why not? Might as well. I mean, I did private lessons all the way. My whole piano education was private lessons. I never really did took the lessons through school. Okay. It was always private. Like a guy would come to my house and it would be very focused on me as an individual, right? And so, I remembered a lot of that teaching and I thought I had a pretty good idea of how to do it. And I had a whole bunch of books, from my childhood that I could use. And so I was like, sure, why not?
Absolutely.
Might as well.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, for sure. Pass that education along.
Yeah.
That was a smart decision for you, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. And that particular story is actually interesting because after I agreed to that, she said, by the way, like, that's great to hear. Let's start with you next week, et cetera, et cetera. By the way, just so you know, like my sons are like the grandchildren of John Coltrane.
Holy shit.
Like the jazz saxophonist.
Yeah.
It's like, okay.
You're like, yeah, sure, sign me up. Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so that was, and I actually still have them as clients, wow. Like I still teach them. And
that's awesome.
And this is, so I've come to love teaching.
Yeah.
And, you've always, some students are like more motivated than others.
For sure.
It's always, of course, the most fulfilling if you feel like you're really there with someone, like you feel like you're really providing value to their life because it's something that they really want to learn.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. That connection.
Yeah. So, it's something that's so cool about it, especially I teach all ages, but obviously, most of them tend to be kids.
Okay.
So it's so interesting if I teach someone for like 5-6 years. You just see them grow up. You watch them grow up.
For sure. Absolutely.
And it's like you see them as kids. You see them start to go through puberty. You see them kind of like start to have these struggles of a teenager and, just all this stuff. And then, I've even like helped some people start like apply to colleges and stuff,
That's so cool.
You kind of start to see this whole process unfolding.
The evolution, of that individual. And you're more than just an educator. You're more than just a teacher. It's that bond that you're creating with your student, and to be able to have that go the distance, it will last with that person forever. It'll be with them forever. Yeah. And to be able to do that, to be able to teach kids at, such an early age, is that more difficult than trying to teach, let's say, an adult, or is an adult more difficult?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think it goes both ways depending on the circumstance. Teaching kids can be hard, because of things like short attention spans or lack of motivation. Like the worst case scenario is you have a student who doesn't want to be there and they're just there because their parents want them to be there.
Yeah.
Because then you can't. There's no possible way to motivate them.
Of course, absolutely.
Because you can't turn into their parent and
No.
discipline them too much. You
No,
don't want to
not at all.
cross that boundary.
You can't.
And you can't say, well, listen, you've paid me to do this, so you are just kind of wasting your money because it's not their money. They have no concept of
No,
money,
not at all.
right?
Not at all.
So that's always a tricky situation. But if the kid is good, that's an amazing experience,
Yeah,
I think. I love
sure.
doing that, because you can see the seed in them, you can see the spark,
Yeah.
right? And you can kind of help grow that. And, there's a sort of if you're a total beginner, there's sort of a traditional path that you would follow just to learn the basics, the fundamentals. But after that, you kind of get to go in whatever direction they want to go. Maybe they like classical, maybe they like rock music, maybe they want to learn to produce hip hop,
Yes.
any of this stuff. So you can kind of go with them wherever they want to go.
Absolutely.
That's really great. Adults are also, they're an interesting case because it also goes both ways with them. Sometimes, I become very aware of the age difference, like they're, maybe a few decades my senior, and I feel like I don't have a certain authority that maybe I should have as a teacher, Of
course.
But some of my favorite students have been adults. There were two former students that I had. They were both men in their 70s.
No shit.
And they started lessons with me as beginners. It's not like they had been playing their whole lives.
That's
so
cool.
they picked up music in their 70s.
It's never too late.
Right.
Never too
and
late.
I loved going over to their places because they tell me stories of how they just constantly reinvent themselves throughout their lives, right? One guy, he's owned multiple businesses throughout his life. He used to be in the restaurant business, and then he started martial arts in his 50s.
No fucking way.
And that's maybe even more intense because that's such a physical thing.
Of course,
right?
absolutely.
So he started martial arts, and I want to say it was jiu-jitsu.
Nice.
But I could be wrong about that.
Yeah, very
it was one of the
intense.
martial arts, and then he got his black belt.
Holy shit.
So now he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu,
way.
right?
Starting in his 50s.
Yeah.
That's I just kind of get to that point. It's never too late. A lot of people hit these barriers in their life and they're like, oh, it's too late to do this. Oh, it's too late to do that. But it's not. Right. At any single point in your life, 10, 20, well, maybe not 10, but like 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, push through, try it, because we don't want to live a life of regrets. And so that person starting martial arts in their 50s, picking up, lessons and playing piano in their 70s, it just shows what type of person that they were. That experience, definitely speaks light years for you as a person. To kind of go back, growing up in, let's go all the way back, growing up in Virginia, compared to, let's say, Los Angeles now. What is that like? I've been to Virginia, but actually living there, never.
Sure. Yes. East Coast versus West Coast.
Yes.
It's a clear cultural difference. And in Virginia, I grew up. Looking back on it now, I would say it was a bit of a bubble for sure. Yeah. It's sort of this kind of Southern living culture, which is, I have a lot of nostalgia for it. I love that, and the seasons there are incredible. Every time I get off the plane, when I go back, it's like I taste the crispiness in the air, and it's amazing, right? But
That's so funny.
There's like that Southern hospitality culture is incredible.
Yes.
I grew up in suburbia.
Okay.
So a lot of my childhood is kind of defined by that sort of growing up in the 90s suburb experience. You ever watch that movie Boyhood? Came out a few years ago.
Yeah, absolutely.
I watched that movie and it felt like my life, right?
That's awesome.
Which of course is the genius of the film.
Yeah,
right. I'm
it's
sure
so
most
good.
people that watch that feel that way.
Gosh, that was brilliant, and the entire experience and the shooting experience of that is great. But get back to your story.
Yes,
Sorry.
agreed. So yeah, growing up in suburbia, like skating around, biking around with my friends, just that whole thing. Definitely idyllic in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Definitely that kind of bubble. So I'm so grateful for that. Because it did kind of give you a strong foundation, and then you leave the house, you go to college, and then especially coming out here, that journey, that literal journey from east to west has also just kind of lined up with my personal journey in life of growing up in the bubble of adolescence and
Yes.
then the bubble breaking into adulthood, right?
It's crazy.
And so in some ways, my comparison of East Coast versus West Coast is lined up with my comparison of childhood versus adulthood.
Yes.
So it's like biased in that way a little bit.
That's so funny.
Because to me, LA is like, this is the land of the sharks. And this is adulthood. This
Yes.
is real life. This is the city of figuring out how to pay your bills and figuring out what a mortgage is and figuring out what an IRA is. And, so it's the real deal for me. Culture wise, I love it out here in LA. I love the juxtaposition of nature versus urban.
Okay.
That seems like something very unique to LA.
Yes, it is.
I love working in the music industry out here. I love all of the inspiration that's here, but it's exhausting for sure.
Yeah, to anyone that has never lived in Los Angeles, California, it's a different animal. It's a different beast, you know.
is.
And for you, it's really defined from your childhood as growing up in Virginia to now your adulthood. And key things that you just kind of pointed out is like mortgage, IRA. Things that, for me at least, I was never taught in school, and so we have to.
Me neither.
We have to learn these things as adults, which really blows my mind away because you would think going to high school, they would help you set your life up, as you kind of take these next steps. But that doesn't happen, obviously. And so we have to learn it on our own. And that's just the name of the game. I do find it incredibly hard being a person that, for me, I went through a lot of struggles growing up. I've faced a lot of shit in my life. And when things get thrown at you, whatever it is in your life, I kind of, in the past, would just kind of run from it. And now I'm at this point where I'm just like pushing forward. Sitting here talking to you, you have just fucking pushed forward. You have just gone for it. You've taken these steps. You've taken these challenges. You've taken these leaps. At 22 years old, I would have, at 17, I moved to London for a little while, but that was on my mommy's pocket. That was on her dime, right?
Sure.
But at 22 years old, for you to take that leap to come out here on your own just kind of shows the type of person that you are. What would you say for anyone trying to make their way into the music industry that does not live in Los Angeles, California, that maybe lives in Virginia, lives in Florida, lives anywhere else except here? What would you say? What would you say maybe to your younger self or to someone that's trying to make that leap?
Yeah, absolutely. Something I've learned in my 20s living here in LA is there are a few meta skills that are crucial to know.
Yeah.
And this probably I'm sure this doesn't just apply to the music industry. One big part of it is learn how you learn the best.
Ooh, I like that.
Come to a deep understanding of how you process information, how you can, and learn how to teach yourself things. That's another part of that.
Google it.
Yeah, exactly. And, because certainly in the music industry with the hustle, especially when you're first starting out, a lot of what happens is you get a call to work some job and it is partially in your comfort zone, but very much outside of your comfort zone.
Okay.
You've kind of have a formal understanding of the skill maybe, but not the applied skill. And so you get a call and there's never time to think about it, by the way, right? It's like, I need an answer by tonight, maybe.
Yeah.
And, so it's like, are you my guy? Are you the guy that can do this, 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 and this? And in your head, you're thinking, I don't know. I can kind of do this, but probably not this. But you, within reason, of course. You don't want to, if I'm a musician, I don't want to agree to fix your car or something.
Yes.
So it has to be within your general skill set. But
That's funny.
If you're comfortable, if you're confident with your ability to teach yourself things, then you can respond to those kind of calls with much more confidence.
Okay.
Right? Because that's happened to me several times, and then YouTube is the friend.
Yes.
Right? YouTube's the big podcasts, just talking to any various mentors you have around town, you've got to think with that sort of growth mindset.
Okay.
You've got to think, okay, this is out of my comfort zone, but this is how I grow, and I'm going to put my best foot forward. I'm going to, give this 100%, 110%. You know, even if I don't know everything, I'm going to do my best to rise to the occasion.
All right.
Here, right? So now that does come with the caveat of you don't want to overextend yourself, because that will have the opposite effect of leaving a bad taste in whoever your employer's mouth.
For sure.
So you don't want to overreach on this, but having that confidence is a big thing. That would be one huge thing that I would recommend. Moving out here in the music industry, it's everybody says this. The cliche is true. It's who you know, right?
Yeah.
And I was saying networking is a lot like dating. You know, that's a good thing to realize. You know, when I first moved out here, I sort of had that sort of formal approach of networking, like, let's go to the event where we all put our name tags on and we write, hi, my name is, and we, you know,
Sure.
And you go to those and everyone has like sweaty armpits and we're all like, it's very it feels very forced and awkward. And, you know, good stuff does come out of that for sure. But if you treat networking like dating, I think you'll have a lot more success, because, you know, it's in the music industry especially. This is not like people don't go on LinkedIn to hire people in this industry so much. It's very much about feeling out each other's vibe.
For sure.
Right? So everybody has the talent here. Everybody has the skills to do the job.
Yeah.
So that's almost just like a check mark. That's, you know, do you have this? Okay, check. Now let's move on to the real thing, which is, do we vibe together? Do I like you? You know, because when you work with artistic stuff, the people that create it it's a very vulnerable thing for them. You know,
sure.
It's art. It's something very personal, and it's something that they usually have a very specific artistic vision on. And so they want to work with somebody who they can feel comfortable sharing that with.
Yeah.
You know, and collaborating with. And so, you know, you meet people and you just learn to kind of, you know, you speak their language and you hang with them and you go to parties with them. You know, you go to I've gotten more business from going to house parties than from going to networking events and like mixers and things.
Of course.
You know, so you know, that's a big thing. Just meet people. You know, I'm not an extrovert. I'm generally pretty introverted, but I can charge myself up to do the extroverted thing.
Yeah.
And when I do it properly, I think I'm quite good at it. And so, you know, channel that kind of outgoing energy and, you know, always think with the mindset of, this is something my mom always tells me, think with the mindset of, you know, what value can I provide to you?
Yeah.
You know, kind of try to think selfulessly like that, you know?
I like that.
Not just what can I take from you? Because
Yes.
you smell that coming a mile away.
course.
In LA especially, you know before they even open their mouth what they're about to say.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely. Gary Vee with marketing, he has that, that book, jab, 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 punch. It's like give, give, and then ask, right? You know, people just coming up to you wanting to take shit right off the bat. It sets a bad taste in your mouth. It doesn't matter, you know, who the heck you are. You know, those were two really good points. And I think for, you know, kids that are thinking about coming up or young adults that are thinking of coming out here, it's a scary thing, you know, to make that step, to make that leap. For you, you said that, you know, you had something set up. Who was that professor? Was it a mentor of yours?
Yeah.
Does he stand out? I mean, tell me a little bit about him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or her.
Yeah. No, it was a professor of mine named Carlos Rivera, actually, who is now quite the accomplished film composer himself, actually.
Nice.
He, maybe a few years back, he scored the Netflix series Godless.
Nice.
Which was, oh yeah, it was it.
Yeah. Sorry, continue.
Yeah, he scored that. He did a movie with Liam Neeson.
Oh, I fucking love him.
I believe that was called A Walk Amongst the Tombstones.
Good.
And so I know he's got some cool upcoming projects too. But yeah, he went to USC as an undergrad, and you know, so a friend of his from USC named Jay Vincent is the composer out here. And thank you.
Yep.
So through Carlos, basically, I got this connection to this guy Jay Vincent out here, and he posted in like a forum that we had for the school. Hey, my buddy Jay is looking for an intern. You know, he's a composer living out in LA. If anyone's interested this summer to go out there, hit him up.
Nice.
And it was a really lucky break for me, because literally like the night before, I had just like finalized my resume, and I had new business cards, and I had like written a little cover letter to send to employers or whatever. And so I I had just done that. And so I saw that and I was able to pounce on it so fast, like within 5 minutes of him posting that, I had emailed the guy.
Fuck yeah.
And that's what got me the job.
Absolutely.
You know?
Wow. That's incredible.
You know, I sent it so quick. I had it all ready to go. And if I had waited even a night to do that, who knows? Because it would have been at least a few hours, later that I had actually responded. And, but he told me, he was like, listen, you were like the first person to respond. And you held up when, he called me later that night and we kind of had a phone interview and, you held up. And so like, you got it.
Right place, right time.
Very much so.
Absolutely.
What's the, I don't know, there's some saying, I don't know what the exact words are, but it's basically like, yes, it's right place at the right time, but it's, like succeeding is all luck, but it's about being prepared for when the luck happens.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you were definitely prepared. I mean, you just finished, your cover letter and what you were working on to be able to do that. And then the interview. And I mean, you obviously somewhat knew your shit to be able to take that opportunity. And that was, if you look back at your life, let's say 40 years from now, and if you look back at your life, that was the moment where it all changed. Would you say that?
I guess you could say that. I don't know. It's hard to think in black and white like that with your own life, right? It's so hard to have that perspective. Give me a few decades and I might very well say that. That was certainly the thing that got me out to LA.
Absolutely.
So if that hadn't happened, you're right. I might not even live on the West Coast. I might not be doing this.
Were you willing to just go anywhere at that point? Like, what was going through your head? I mean, even before you sent out, the reply to him, were you just open to going anywhere? If it was New York, if it was Georgia, wherever?
Yeah, I had started putting together a list actually of, a bunch of people I was going to hit up and just, the plan was to cold email them, which, is certainly not the best approach, but it's, it was about the numbers game. I think I had close to like 100 names that I was looking at, individual composers. I was looking at like video game studios, because I was also interested in scoring for games. Various, I think, ad houses, post-production houses, things of that nature. And I was just going to go down that list. And, it's, at that stage in the game when you have no connections, you gotta start somewhere.
Yeah.
And it's like, even if 99% of 99 out of 100 ignore that email, if you get one, then
that's absolutely just like you said, it's a numbers game. Just putting yourself out there, being vulnerable, really, opening your life up for whatever comes your way.
Yeah. A buddy of mine, he, it was the same experience with him. He would message this Grammy-winning producer, right? And he messaged him like years ago. He said, "Hey, love your work, et cetera, et cetera. I'm a upcoming producer. Would love to help you out in any way that I can. If you need anything, let me know." No response.
Okay.
A few months later, followed up, no response. I don't know how many times he did it. It was at least three or four times. And finally, at the fourth or fifth time, the guy responds, and now this dude has won a Grammy, by the way.
Fuck yeah.
He's worked with him, and he assisted him for so long to, got his chops up, his production chops, to the point where that producer started giving him more work to do on his own, and now he's won a fucking Grammy.
Holy shit. And it's like you said, it is that numbers game. It is not giving up.
Yep.
Right? It is not giving up. I mean, if he would not have sent that email 2, 3, 4, 5 times, where would he be now? And now he has a Grammy?
Yep.
Like that's just mind-blowing. And so it's just continuing to push on even when it doesn't seem like it's working, or it's you're not getting a response.
And not taking it personally, too.
Exactly.
Because it's so easy, if you get that ignore, it's so easy to attribute malevolence to the other party due to your own self-consciousness.
Yeah.
It's so easy to think, man, this person must have looked me up and hated me, and therefore they'll never hit me back.
For sure.
They'll never contact me again, and they're spreading my name across the industry. Like it sounds absurd,
but it's true.
But it's so true, and it feels so real.
It does. At that moment in your life, it feels so real. But the real honesty behind it is that dude was just busy, and he probably didn't see it, right?
Yeah,
or didn't
exactly.
even it just didn't come under his radar. But eventually, at that one point, he did.
Yep.
and then just fuck, he went for it.
Yep.
And it's the same thing for you, right? I mean, obviously the first time you reached out, it did, it obviously panned out for you, right? But that is so many things in individuals' life. They take things way too personally, and then you get caught up in your own shit, and our brain can just wander and go down this rabbit hole so freaking fast, and then it just makes you so jaded, so blinded, when in life it's not just one way or the other. There's so many factors that lead into whatever it is that an individual is going through. Growing up, did you rock out in any bands? Was it always personal?
Yeah, I did. I played in a lot of those garage bands.
Nice.
Growing up, the classic sort of. I've got a shitty drum set, and this dude plays bass, and I play keyboards, and here's a guitar player, and we'll just get together in the garage and jam out. Yeah, definitely did my fair share of that. I was really into progressive rock growing up.
Okay.
You know what that is?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, prog rock. For sure.
I was a huge snob about it too.
Okay.
I was a huge snob. So I was that guy who was like, "Oh, your music's not complex.
It's not good enough." Yeah. Fuck, that shit's complex though.
Yeah, it is, man. And I got to tell you, that was a crucial music training for me. Like learning to play that kind of stuff and learning how to count all those odd time signatures and just all that stuff. So it was really helpful for me because I had come fresh off of classical music, my classical music training. So that was the bridge from classical into rock for me.
Wow.
But anyway, so I played in a few prog rock bands, which was super dope. And my favorite is I played in this band. We called ourselves the Portland Organ.
The Portland Organ. Yeah. Why?
Because
cool. I like it, but why?
I occasionally played an organ sound on my keyboard, I guess. But it was just a pod on Portland Organ.
Yeah, a little play on words. Real quick, if people don't know what progressive rock is, will you explain it to them?
Yes, absolutely. So progressive rock is a subgenre of rock music that became really prevalent in the 70s into the 80s. It started in the 60s, arguably. People actually oftentimes will refer to the Beatles as sort of the first proto-prog band.
Okay.
Meaning like they weren't progressive rock. Progressive rock wasn't a thing, but the music that they made, especially in their experimental years, with things like Sgt. Pepper's is frequently cited as like one of the greatest prog rock albums ever.
Okay.
So like the experimentation that they did in the studio was sort of the genesis for a lot of the creativity that birthed the prog rock movement in the 70s and stuff.
Man, that's
Pink
incredible.
Floyd is a big band, in that prog rock scene. Let's see, Emerson, Lake and Palmer.
Okay.
Genesis, sort of the early years before it became popular. Genesis, King Crimson, Yes, the band, and all of these guys. The rock music, so they jam out, but they have sort of the complex musicality of highly influenced by classical music. Like if you imagine a Bach piece or Mozart or something, and it's this very virtuosic stuff. Okay. A lot of fast melodies and things like that. And so prog rock loves to incorporate that kind of thing into a rock band context. So it's normally guitar, bass guitar, drums, and like a keyboardist who has like, especially in the 70s, they have like the whole stack of keyboards on stage with them, and they're like this wizard going around. And so they've got like a few synths, they've got an organ, they've got a keyboard, and it's these really long, not all the times, but often these long epic pieces, 10, 20, 30 minutes sometimes, and they're just these odysseys. They have multiple movements to them. If there are lyrics, the lyrics are often kind of telling this fantastical sort of sci-fi kind of story.
Okay.
And it's just this whole journey of sound. Like you can imagine Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon, like that whole album together as one unit is just a prog rock odyssey.
Wow.
So it's all this crazy stuff. Very experimental. Sometimes pretentious, like, at least to I sort of became jaded on the whole thing, and it felt very pretentious to me at times, so I sort of steered away from it. But it's just a celebration of like really complex music.
Super technical. I mean,
super technical.
Especially if you go from the 70s to now, the progressive rock is just. I was turned on to it like last year, the year before, and I was just so fucking blown away.
Yeah.
I was like, first off, why is there no vocals?
Yeah.
A lot of the shit that my friend was sharing, I was like, wow. But it reminded me, and it reminded me a lot of like, kind of like what Skrillex has done with like his dubstep, like super fucking technical shit, taking all of these sounds, bringing it together, and just blowing your fucking mind away. And that's exactly what it reminded me of, especially the stuff you showed me. I cannot remember the band's name, but it was super impressive. So yeah, it's cool, but you were a little snob about it, huh? Back in the day.
Whatever. I was 14. You know, it's so interesting. Like, you know how like Facebook will be like 10 years ago today, you have made this shitty little comment. You know?
It's so true. Like, what the fuck was I wearing?
Yes.
For me, especially, I'm like, I got this like bleached fucking faux hawk, like I'm like, and like a white T-shirt with like a vest on, but like a suit, like a dress vest, and like a freaking tie. But I was wearing a I don't know, just like super stupid. But stupid. Yeah. But looking back at 14,
it's just like I would write the most pretentious shit. But whatever.
It is what it is, man. That's,
it was a crucial metamorphosis stage.
Oh, for sure, absolutely.
That's actually, by the way, speaking of Skrillex, that's how I got into electronic music at first. I think back in like 2010, 2011.
Okay.
Like when Skrillex was coming onto the scene, because I heard, they call that they have that subgenre of EDM that they call complextro, which is Skrillex, Wolfgang Gartner, all of these guys that would do these like heavy drops where there's just all this crazy shit happening, right? And yet it somehow all kind of blends together.
Yes.
And so that was the big appeal to me. I like blew my mind.
It does.
It's like all those intricate parts, and I had that influence from my prog rock.
No, for sure. That was the very first thing that I thought of. I mean, because if you just look at, especially like the early years of like Skrillex, with like Cinema and the Bangarang album and all that shit, it's super fascinating. I mean, all of these different, just unique sounds, these hard drops, it just blows your mind away. I mean, if you're not a snob, you're like, no, I don't like EDM. Like, well, that's you. That's your freaking problem. But if you can respect music, right? What
it's fascinating.
It is. It's so fucking fascinating.
Yep.
So,
it's so impeccably mixed. With electronic music, you have a wider range of strong frequencies than any other genre before. Like even you compare it to rock, and it's like rock packs a punch, but EDM really packs a punch.
It does.
Especially if you hear it live, like at a club or something. Like, man.
Yeah, you go to a festival or go to a club, man. It just you just feel everything. Yep. Especially when you're not like, if you're on ecstasy or you're not on ecstasy, you definitely feel it either way. So going back to Virginia, are your parents from Virginia?
They are not. My mom was born and grew up in New Jersey, like around Trenton, New Jersey.
Jersey, dropping shit too.
Yeah, and my dad, upstate New York.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, they spent most of they grew up in those respective cities. They spent most of their childhood there, and then my dad, I know, his family moved down to Virginia, I think when he was a teenager, like in high school.
Okay. And
then they met because they both went to Virginia Tech.
Nice.
And my dad was in state at that point. My mom came from New Jersey to go there.
Okay.
And they met because they both worked in this sort of dramatic theater group. Like it was sort of a big show choir almost, and they were huge too. Like they were called the New Virginians, and they toured across the country. Like,
wow.
I think they were a bigger entity than just Virginia Tech. Like I don't know the history really, but they maybe started at Virginia Tech, but they got so big. And so he was a technician, a light and sound technician, and my mom was in the costume department, and they met there. And that is actually, although I said no one in my family is musical before me, my dad was definitely, an audiophile, has this tremendous appreciation for sound and audio, and he worked as a sound technician for a lot of live shows back in the day.
Wow.
Like he did Tina Turner, he did Jefferson Starship, maybe they were called Jefferson Airplane at the time. I can't remember.
All right.
Like AC/DC, and all these tours that would come through town, he would work on them.
Wow, that's so freaking cool, man.
And so then they lived in Virginia, ever since then. And my brother and I were both born in Virginia.
So what do your parents do now? Are they retired? But what did they do back then? I don't know if they're retired, but I was just assumptions for assholes.
Yeah, my mom is the original entrepreneur of the family. My brother and I are both entrepreneurs now, and I think it's in good part because of her. She went to Virginia Tech to study like textiles, and she works with all things fabric and upholstery. After college, she worked in like kind of an upholstery house for a while, and then eventually, shortly after she had my brother and I, she started up her own business, and she worked out of the house. So she she had a tremendous solution, by the way, to the classic mom dilemma of like new parent dilemma of like, do I stay at home? Do I keep working? Like she did both, right? She worked from home, and like she was so tremendously present in our lives, like as growing up. So it was like the best of both worlds.
Nice.
And so she started this business out of the house where she does custom window treatments and kind of upholstery, for clients, and she goes to their house. She does a consultation. They're like, yeah, I need, I have 40 windows here.
Yeah.
Let's do all of the draperies.
Nice.
And she does that, and she's got all this great professional equipment now, and she's all set up, and she started selling blinds and shades at a certain point. So she's the true entrepreneur of the family.
For sure. Wow, that's incredible. What about your pops?
He let's see. He worked for Circuit City, like I said, for a while. He got out before they went under. He saw it coming a few years back.
Good for him.
And so he got out a few years before they went under. He worked for Circuit City for a long time, and then basically retired from there and just kind of traded on the stock market. He's got a really keen sense for stock trading and stuff. So he makes a lot of money on the stock.
Nice.
So
share some tips
later
on.
Right? Seriously. So he did that, and then he went back to he started working again for Amazon.
Okay.
And now he is retired again.
All right.
But it's not clear. He's sort of just like he starts working again if he feels like it.
Good for him.
Like it's both of my parents, like they're staying active, like they've got the things that they're doing, even though they're empty nesters now, both
Good
my
for
brother
them.
and I have left the house now, but it's like, it goes back to what I was saying with those 70-year-old piano students.
Yes.
It's so inspiring to hear that, because it feels like when you adopt that approach to life, it almost feels like life extends.
Yes.
For
sure.
It doesn't physically extend, like you live however long you live, but the window of opportunity extends to your whole life.
For sure.
As opposed to just 0 to 50, maybe
Whatever it is,
0 to
right?
65 or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's crucial.
No, for sure. They're constantly, people reinventing themselves, and they're not stopping. I just kind of hear this ongoing story of like, the parent works and then they retire, they have nothing to do, and then they fucking die, right? I see a lot of people, like especially working in the hair industry, all these freaking 70 and 80-year-olds that are still fucking rocking.
Yeah,
and
totally.
They have purpose, right?
Yeah.
And I think purpose is a huge part of life. If you don't have purpose, you are lost. And especially if you've had purpose for such a long period of time, and then all of a sudden stops, and you don't fill it with something else, you can only travel and do so much, right? To where then it just comes, mundane, and it's just kind of the every day of life. But if you have something that pushes you forward, I don't know, I have this theory that it keeps you longer, keeps you here longer. And for me, whatever the heck I'm doing, I hope that, I continue to push forward, and, just kind of hearing your life, the entrepreneurial spirit of your mom and your dad constantly reinventing themselves, it just shows into you, right? And you said you have a brother, right? What's his story? What's he do?
Yeah, he when he graduated college, he moved out to Chicago. He's living there now, and he's definitely the extrovert of the family. Like he's very into that urban life, and so he loved Chicago from the moment he moved there. And so he's been working at. He works at a startup. He worked at a series of startups, various tech startups, when he moved there, and he also is running this business, this side hustle, out of his house, where he buys and sells used music gear.
Nice.
And he started up an online store, and it's like he seems to be doing really well with it. He's selling a lot of product, and it's mostly guitars, guitar amps, guitar pedals, generally focused around, because he is a musician. I started playing first, and then he started a little later in life, but he picked up a guitar. And so he's
nice.
That's his thing. And he, so a lot of guitar-based gear and accessories. He's got his online store. He sells and ships all over the world.
What's it called?
It's called Marquette Studios.
How do you spell that?
Marquette.
Okay.
Marquette Studios. It's named after an address that we both, not the house that we grew up in it first, but one of the houses that we lived in was on Marquette Avenue, Marquette Drive. It was on Marquette Road. It was on
Marquette Road.
Yeah, and so that's the name of his business, and he's got his online store, and if you're shopping for a like a vintage guitar or whatever, like.
Check it out.
Check it out.
Seriously, that's straight up. And once again, it really shows the way that your parents have lived their own life is a true reflection of yourself and your brother, right? I have this philosophy, in life, and I've heard it many times. It's like who you surround yourself, the top 5 people you surround yourself with the most is going to be a reflection of, kind of who you are. So if you hang out with, a whole bunch of, deadbeats, drug addicts, well, what are you probably going to be? If you hang out with a whole bunch of successful, open-minded, individuals, well, what are you probably going to be? And so growing up, the two most important people in your life, just have this knack of fucking pushing forward. It's a true reflection of yourself and your brother. So it's really awesome, man.
Yeah.
So now you're at this point in your career. You're out here in good old Los Angeles. What are you working on? What have you been doing the past 5 years,
for
8
sure,
years, 6
for
years?
Sure. Let's see. So for the past was it 3 years, 4 years? I've been working mostly in TV. A few, collaborators and I, we've got this relationship with DreamWorks Animation. We started working on a show several years back called Harvey Street Kids.
Okay.
And it was called Harvey Street Kids at the time. I believe they've now retitled it to be called Harvey Girls Forever.
Okay.
And it's this animated show. DreamWorks created it, and then it premiered exclusively on Netflix. And it was this great show geared towards kids. Really funny, really like heartwarming. It's just it's this animated series. It's a bunch of kids that all live on the same neighborhood street, and they just get up to these crazy shenanigans.
Okay.
It's got a very like Cartoon Network Saturday morning cartoons feel.
I love it.
It feels very old school in a way, and the animation style is kind of old school too.
Fuck yeah.
So it's it's just this great stuff. Like they, one episode they try to. Because the big thing when you're a kid is like, what if we stayed up all night?
Of course.
So there's this one episode where they're like, okay, we're going to stay up all night. And it's the first time they've ever done it. And, they construct this artificial sun so that there's daylight 24 hours a day. And so they never go to sleep. And then they all turn into zombies, and it turns into like a zombie horror
Holy
episode.
shit.
Because like all the kids are sleep deprived and roaming around like zombies.
They're all cracked out.
Yeah. So we like started that episode writing like super like positive music, like energetic, like, yeah, we're going to do this. And then it switched to like just horror music, just like crazy shit like that. They like have they like come up with these crazy technological inventions just to have more fun. And,
nice.
It's a whole thing. So we did 4 seasons of that.
Good.
And and we did all of those in a row nonstop. Especially with animation, you can work pretty far ahead of time. So before season 1 even premiered, we were like almost done with season 3.
Holy, season 3?
Yeah, and it's also crazy. It goes to the relationship between DreamWorks and Netflix, because Netflix, DreamWorks has done, by that point, I think they had already done 6 or 7 shows with Netflix. So they clearly had a model going.
Yeah. And
there's clearly trust there. So Netflix greenlit like 4 seasons before season 1 even premiered.
That's the thing I hear about Netflix. Sorry to cut you off, but it's like they just kind of fucking here you go.
Yeah.
Instead of with traditional production houses and things like that, it's like you got to do this. You got to you can't do that. We got to change it, rewrite it, blah 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 blah. Whereas like fucking before season 1 launches, you're working on season 3.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. So we did 4 seasons of that, and season 4 actually just premiered on Netflix yesterday.
Congratulations.
Yeah. So, and that's the final season as far as everyone's concerned. And so, there was a big finale and everything. And, we did that. I've been off of that show for a little over a year now, because we finished up last year. But, it was just, that was the true grind experience, where it was like trial by fire, like learning how to do the job on the job.
Holy shit.
And I was prepared for it in the right ways, but the, TV, the deadlines in TV are intense.
Yeah.
These are 22-minute episodes. And with animation, especially because there was a lot of comedy involved as well, there tends to be a lot more music in animation than in live action stuff.
Okay.
Because the music tends to just play this more interactive role with the narrative, you know? So usually there's like 17 to 18 minutes of music per episode.
Holy shit.
And you do an episode maybe every 2 weeks, maybe every week and a half, you know? So, and it's like nonstop, like going all year, you know, episode.
How long does that take to do one episode? Does that take 2 weeks?
Yeah, the answer is it takes however much time you have in the deadline. If you had 3 months, it would take 3 months.
Okay.
If you had 2 weeks, it'll take 2 weeks.
Okay,
So
yeah.
you're always like, you're getting right up against the deadline each time.
For sure. What's that process like? How do you know what type of music? Is it just come to your brain? What is it like?
Yeah, so the way that we got this gig actually is really interesting. We, just kind of like you would go for a job interview and you would interview for a role. We basically auditioned for this role where basically they put out a publicity blast, like, hey, we need a composer for this show. They give you a creative brief where they go over the basic concept of the show, the log line, and the general idea of what music styles they want to pursue.
Okay.
And then they'll maybe give you a list of reference tracks to listen to, like existing reference music. And they say, send us some tracks. And so the initial, we went through this demoing process for 6 months.
Holy crap.
On spec, basically. And so the presumption is they're narrowing down the field over time.
Yeah.
I don't know how many composers initially started demoing, eventually just got down to 2, you know, and then 1. And so, but at first it was like, submit to us a bunch of punk rock music, synth pop, and Motown music.
Holy
like old school kind of funk.
Yeah.
And that's quite the trifecta.
No, that's exactly it. Yeah, I was going to say that.
And it's so cool because, I come from that background of like doing these contemporary styles. Like I do the orchestral thing. It comes up a lot. Of course, like the traditional film music is orchestral stuff, but my background has always been like rock and electronic and like just dope ass music.
For sure.
So that was so exciting for me, to get to score stuff with that style. So we sent in a bunch of rock and synth pop and Motown, some of which we already had, like we had done it previously, and some of which we had to write on the fly. And then we hear back maybe a month later, like not for another month we hear, and then they say, great, send us some more stuff, and we went through a few rounds of this, and then they eventually send us a cut of the first episode. And since it's animation, it's what we call pre-viz, which is, before they do all the final animation. So a lot of it is just a series of almost pencil sketches.
Oh.
Digitally created, of course, but just the equivalent of like pencil sketches.
Yeah.
And so you have to score this scene dramatically just based on this rough sketch that they've given you.
Wow.
And so we did that. They came back to us like a week later. Okay, score another scene. We did that. And finally, the whole process took about 6 months. And finally, we got the job.
Oh my gosh. How much work do you think because you weren't getting paid for this. You were doing this completely on spec. So how many hours did that take?
Oh yeah. It was over 100 hours for sure.
That's crazy.
Because it's all of the.
Oh my God.
You're doing so much. It's so creatively exhausting at the beginning of a show because you're trying to figure out the sound.
Yeah.
And of course, you have to totally suspend your ego because you'll put sweat and tears like all night into this thing that you think is amazing, and you'll send it, and they'll be like, "This isn't quite what we're looking for," and you're like,
motherfucker.
But this is my vision for the show.
Yeah, I just spent all this time on this. Are you serious?
Yeah.
Man, 100 hours though. Imagine the other person, whoever. You just put 100 hours of time and we're going to go with the other dude.
That's the thing. Like second place is
it's not first. No, it's nothing.
Yeah.
It's literally not. Oh my gosh. Well, I'm so happy you got it.
Thanks. Thank you.
Who are you working with?
Yeah. So Jay Vincent,
okay,
who I mentioned previously, he's the guy that I started interning with at first. After I interned with him, he started hiring me to do work. I graduated sort of from the internship, and I would just, we're all freelancers, so we all do our own projects, but we just started working together a lot. And before this, I had done a few films with him, like a web series, things like that.
Yeah.
And so it's 4 of us. It's Jay and myself and this guy Ryan Lofty and David Butterfield. And we did all the music together. And David Butterfield, by the way, is also from Miami. He came out of University of Miami, just like me.
He's got a great name, too. David Butterfield.
Right.
That's a fucking awesome name. Wow. That is really freaking cool. And after going through that internship, What was it like? I mean, did you have work right away? I mean, did you have to frickin' Uber? Was it the side hustle of education that kind of got you through and teaching people how?
The side hustle is what paid my bills for sure. The income starts rolling in for composing work, but it's not always regular, right? Even working on the show, once we got that gig, you're making, there's a set amount that you're making, so you have that security, but the schedule with which you get paid is not always regular.
For sure.
So even when I had actually started making money composing, the side hustle, the teaching I've always relied on that to pay my bills.
That's awesome.
Right? And when you keep low overhead, for the first several years, I always made sure I could pay all of my bills alone just with the teaching income. And then any of the composing income is cherries on the top.
There we go.
Right?
That's so smart. I mean, sharing that type of knowledge with people starting out, because you could have went crazy, right? And just blown through your money. But being smart with your money has really helped you out a lot. Where did you learn these skills to be smarter with your money? Was it family? Was it Google?
It was, to my dad's credit, he actually, for both my brother and I, he taught us a lot of that. And you mentioned earlier, they don't teach you that in schools. And,
no.
And that's absolutely true, because I certainly didn't learn that in school.
No.
And my dad always had this philosophy of it was the parents' job to sort of fill in the gap, the functional life skills.
Yeah.
And so his dad did not give him any financial wisdom. And so he taught himself, going back to that self-teaching thing. He taught himself all this stuff. When he was my age, he read all these, he just had this thirst for that financial knowledge because he wanted to level up.
Yes.
And so he taught himself all about this stuff. And then when we were kids, he started up this thing called the Bank of Dad.
Okay. Wow. Okay. All right. Here we go. Explain.
Yeah. He the Bank of Dad, where, so we would get an allowance, but it was, he wouldn't just give it to us. It was conditional. We would get like a regular allowance, but it was conditional on, kind of helping out around the house, basically.
Okay.
That was always the expectation. And it wasn't like specifically tit for tat. It wasn't literally like, do the dishes, get this amount of money. It was just like, here's a regular wage, right?
Yeah.
And you're just expected to help her out.
Life skills, man.
Yeah. So we would kind of get a regular allowance, and then it would be invested in the Bank of Dad, basically. And as opposed to, which works just about exactly like a normal bank.
Yeah.
But just instead of, going to some other bank and putting our money in, we would invest it right with him, and he would keep a spreadsheet, and like every month we would like do a meeting, like a report.
No
and
way.
He would like, here's your money, like here's what it was last month, here's what it is now. And so he would give us an interest rate.
Yes.
And it was better than, because
Banks.
a bank interest rate is nothing.
Nothing. They're
right?
just taking your money to give it away, to loan it.
Yeah.
And
So
you're losing money.
So he gave us I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was quite generous.
Yeah.
And it was and because he wanted us to learn the concept of compounding interest.
Yes, exactly.
And the value of saving. Right.
It's 100%. I mean, compounding interest is such a crucial factor to these, these individuals that are making, all of this money. And, people don't realize how useful of a tool it can be for your life to save for your future.
Yeah.
Because if you just keep your money in the bank or inside your safe or wherever, you're fucking losing money, with inflation every single year. It's just getting chipped at, right? But, if you're starting to build that nest egg and you put it into the, the right areas, as that nest egg grows, that compounding interest then builds and builds and builds. And, hopefully one day you have enough so that you can retire to do whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah.
So how do I join up for the Bank of Dad?
Honestly, my dad would be an amazing, he is the quintessential podcast guest.
Gosh.
Because he loves to, he would, you ask him a question like that and he'll go. He will run with it.
That's
awesome. There have been certain occasional scenarios where I take him to a party with me.
Yeah.
If my parents came down to visit me in Miami when I was in college, or when they came out here to California to visit me and I was going to a holiday party or something. So I'll take him with me, and his mission is to kind of impart wisdom.
Fuck.
Yes. So if he locks in with somebody, they are going away that night with some crucial information.
That's incredible. Yeah. The next time he comes out here, you better bring him on. Wow. These crucial life skills that your father and mother instilled in you guys is a reflection of, once again, I keep on going back. It's a reflection of who you are today. The Bank of Dad, man, he should create a website called the Bank of Dad that just, helps educate the youth on, these key factors on how to save for your future, because if you're smart with your money, you can, but, unfortunately most are not. Right. And it's a really sad case. Throughout the United States of America and just throughout the globe. So you went through the internship. This TV show, working with DreamWorks and Netflix. What's the next step? Because this was just recent. I know it just launched, but that finished a year ago. You said that job? Yeah,
we finished that up. I think it was early 2019 that we finished that, and then. Shortly after, actually, with the same team, I hopped on a different show, also DreamWorks, also Netflix.
Okay.
Called Cleopatra in Space.
Okay. What's that about?
That is it's a great show. It's a great show.
I love the name.
Yeah. Also, a kids show. I would say the demographic is probably a little higher than what Harvey Street Kids was.
Okay.
Getting a little more probably into the teen realm. But I would say imagine Star Wars, like that space opera sort of story. But it's all Egyptian civilization, Egyptian culture, basically.
Nice.
The premise is basically, and this is based on a comic book series, by the way.
Okay.
So the comic creator, his name is Mike Mayhack, and
all right.
So DreamWorks got the property from this guy and developed it into an animated series. So the concept is basically it starts in the past in ancient Egypt when Cleopatra was alive.
Okay.
And through some fluke, she discovers a certain tablet, like a mystical tablet, and it somehow opens up a wormhole where she gets catapulted thousands of years into the future, basically. Okay. And at that point, all of civilization is in space. It's an intergalactic sort of thing, and it's all Egyptian, basically. She joins this, sort of Starfleet Academy type thing where the head of the academy is. Like a Sphinx cat, basically. So it's really cool because it incorporates all these, Egyptian cultural influences and stuff. It's got that, it's got pyramids. It's got they sometimes ride around in space on these space bikes that look like sphinxes.
Okay.
So the aesthetic of it is really cool, and it's sort of a classic story of. There's a Cleopatra who's a protagonist. There's a main villain, and there's a whole rivalry and a grudge there, and it's just they're always sort of under attack from this villain. And, it's a classic sort of space opera story. And and we just wrapped on that, by the way. We did 2 seasons of that. And it was such a fantastic show to score because the style for that was very futuristic because it was set in the future. So there was a lot of electronica synth-based stuff, but also incorporated a lot of traditional Egyptian influences, like a lot of, sort of ancient Egyptian instruments. And there are musical scales that specifically evoke that Egyptian sound. There are specific Arabic scales, things of that nature that you hear them once and you're in Egypt.
Yes.
They're so evocative. And so we combined, these really exotic sounding, mystical sounding Egyptian instruments, flutes and various Egyptian plucked guitar kind of instruments, and with synths. There's some action scenes that are just fucking bangers.
That's so cool.
They just drop it to, and that's the credit of, Ryan Lofty, who I mentioned before, part of the team. He was sort of the lead guy on this show, and he's so good at that. Before he was a composer for TV, he was a DJ. He was a producer. He lived in Vegas. He played shows.
Okay.
So he's so good at just making electronic bangers, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So so he would take those action scenes and just do some incredible stuff with them. And so sometimes you're just jamming out to this dope EDM kind of drop, and then sometimes it's like really tense, dramatic Egyptian sounding music.
That's so cool.
So that's one of the profound joys of doing this kind of composing work, because you'll get hired on a project and they'll throw the most random combination of things at you. Like on the previous show on Harvey Girls Forever, it was punk plus Motown plus synth pop, right? Which
just
I don't know if that's ever gone together.
No, fuck no.
You know, so you have to like come up. It's a challenge. It's a creative challenge. And on this show, it was ancient Egyptian music and EDM.
Okay.
You know,
I
so
love
it's like
it.
people always say think outside the box,
Yes.
right? But what's really stimulating is here's the box, play within the box.
Okay. Oh,
And it's,
shit.
here's the crazy box.
Yeah.
You know, like Egyptian and EDM. Like here's the box, and the challenge, and which is really fulfilling ultimately, is figuring out how to adapt to that.
Absolutely. Being able to play, being able to kind of collab too with different individuals. Now, when you guys are writing the music, is it, you're in the studio many hours a day together, or is it separated? How does that work out?
We also, we all work remotely from home most of the time. We all have our own little studio setups, and generally it's, kind of divided up where, I take these scenes and he takes these scenes, et cetera, et cetera. Or we might collaborate on one scene together. And then sometimes we'll get together and we'll all work in the same place and do it. But for the most part, it's, it's very digital. It's like, we're on the phone with each other all the time. We're always going back and forth. And we have shared Google Docs and things where we're typing up feedback and things. But yeah, it's, it's a great sort of, for me personally, at least, because this lines up with how I operate really well. Especially with creative work, if you feel like you're always someone's looking over your shoulder all the time, it's sometimes hard to really
100
get into the zone and write something that you're really is authentic, right?
Yes.
And so, it's been great for me to be able to just work from home. I don't even have to be like wearing clothes half the time.
Yes, nice. Doing it naked.
Yeah,
I love
absolutely. And, you do whatever you have to do to get in the zone.
Yes.
And, you set your own hours. You can work as a steady like 9 to 5 if you want, or you can just like work in the hours from 11 p.m. to 3 a.m. if you want, And so it's a really great balance for me, at least.
For sure. Absolutely. You kind of hit on a good point, though, and it's micromanagement. There's this like old school mentality, especially from the boomers, where it's like, you got to fucking, you got to do this, you got that, and someone's always looking over your shoulder. And, I understand in certain, workplaces, that's how it has to be. But there is a large scale of workplaces that it does not have to be that way. But, the older generation, that's how they were brought up. Right. And for me as an individual working, that is not how I like to work. Right. I mean, no one likes it. No one likes someone just breathing down your neck 24/7. And it also drags shit out too. It's just, it's never a win-win, game when you're trying to meet deadlines or work on a project together. So I can't say micromanagement. It was a little kind of something I wanted to throw in there. But for you, what is the next step? What's after this?
Yeah. So I just moved up here to Santa Clarita.
Santa Clarita.
So one thing that I'm doing is I am opening up a physical studio space.
Nice.
So I'm going to be using that. I'm going to be running my studio out of it. I'll combine it with my teaching studio. I'm looking to get a baby grand piano or something in there.
Beautiful.
And so, I can have students come over there and work out of there. I can have clients come over into the studio that I'm working with. So that's one part of it. I'm trying to grow this physical business.
Yeah.
And then I also have a big project coming up, which I'll tell you as much as I can about it.
Okay.
I have to leave some details vague based on who I'm working for. But
for sure.
I'm doing this orchestration project, basically. And so for those who don't know, in music, the job of the orchestrator is basically you have pre-existing music that you're given that's been written, and you then arrange that for an orchestra traditionally. Okay. You can apply the term orchestrator to pretty much anything. So you arrange it for some other group of musicians than what it was originally written for, right? And so I'm taking, I've been hired to, I'm going to be taking all these original songs and arrange them for an orchestra, and probably even we've talked about throwing a choir in there. And it's going to be a pretty big scale production where they're going to be doing some live shows across the country and hopefully going into Europe and stuff.
That's exciting.
I'm excited because it's transitioning into the live music scene.
Yeah.
I'm I'm excited to kind of try do something outside of the TV film domain for a little bit.
For sure. Kind of step out of that bubble. That bubble you've been in. But the crazy thing is like, you haven't been in it that long. Yeah. And to be able to find the success that you have found in a short period of time. And it's no disrespect to what you're doing, but 6-7 years you've been out here, right? It is incredible, because this is, as you know, it's a cutthroat industry. Mm-hmm. But, surrounding yourself with the right people, and obviously your personality speaks light years, because you want to work with people that you like to be around. Even though you work remotely, you still have to talk to the individual. Mm-hmm. And it's very inspiring, because you're at a young age. You just bought this place. How long ago?
4 months ago.
4 months ago. Shout out to Alex, right?
Yeah, our mutual friend Alex.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. That's how we met. We went out to dinner a couple weeks ago, and Alex was like, you got to come hang out. You got to meet this guy. He'd be great for your podcast. And obviously he was freaking correct, because you have a beautiful story. Starting in Virginia. Going through everything you went through with your parents teaching you and instilling these fucking awesome things that just blow my mind away. Then making yourself, in Miami, the University of Miami, and now out here. You have so much more life ahead of you. I know that you're going to go on to some very big fucking things. And kudos to you, man. Seriously, kudos to you.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. That's very kind.
I say it how it is. Mm-hmm. Looking back at yourself in your college years, did you have the same type of mentality? Were you fucking wild? Were you partying your ass off? Like, what was that like?
Yeah, it's definitely I was definitely a work in progress then, as I am now, of course, as well.
For sure.
But in a different way. I think I hadn't developed the same level of motivation at that point. That I certainly had the inspiration. I look back at college, my college experience, as being a tremendous time of artistic freedom for me, for sure. Like I went into college with that prog rock snobbery,
yes.
Right?
You little snob.
Yeah, and within less than a year of being there, like broke down those walls and opened up to so much stuff, and started hanging out with all of these incredible people that became friends, and they're all musicians, and so we would all share music and jam, and like that is honestly maybe the best argument I could give for going to a music school, because there's a lot of arguments to not go to college at all, let alone for music.
Absolutely.
Many of which are extremely strong,
yes,
and are getting stronger every year.
Every single year.
Yeah.
I agree.
but the one thing that really does make a difference is being in that physical energy, where you're with all those musicians, both as your peers and as your professors, as your mentors.
Yeah.
And as I said before, like the reason that I got most of my work, like the opportunity that led to a large amount of my work following graduation was through that connection with the professor. So
absolutely,
it is a lot about the people.
It's the experience, man. I am a big proponent for not going to college, right? Unless you want to be a doctor, or, the things you
need the certification.
You need the certification, which totally makes sense, right? I don't want someone working on me that never went to school, right? That learned off of YouTube, right? Yeah. But I am a big proponent for the experience, right? Just really being out on your own for the first time, being able to surround yourself with a whole bunch of younger individuals really experiencing life for the first time. The ups and downs. I never got to experience college, right? Mm-hmm. And it used to be a regret of mine. Now it's definitely not 110%. But, talking to my little brother, right? I'm always like, fuck college. And not fuck college to the sense of like, once again, going back to the doctors and that type of sense, but not racking up a $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, debt, where you can learn these skills elsewhere. That is for sure, especially business and all of that shit. But I am a big proponent for him for that experience. That really that once in a lifetime experience. That you can get going away to a school, and going through the ups and downs, right? Mm-hmm. That is definitely a valid point. So being out in Los Angeles, California, working on all of these things, you really want to be able to kind of take your business to that next level, right? Really growing. Is it called a studio? What do you call it?
I'm calling it a studio. I think that's the best catch-all term for it, because it is a studio in many senses of the word. It's a composing studio. It's a recording studio. It's a teaching studio. Yeah, it's sort of a multi-purpose space.
Absolutely.
For sure. But, you know, looking to just establish that kind of physical centerpiece of the business. You know?
Sure.
The more energy you put into those kind of things, you know, it increases your legitimacy a lot. And, you know, now I'm able to invite clients over. Here's a comfy couch, and do a whole presentation.
Absolutely.
Whatever,
bring them into your zone where you feel the most comfortable.
Yeah.
Like I am here right now.
Yes.
Right?
And I have to say, I'm very wooed by this.
Thank you so much, man. There's a little bit more work to do in this spot, but definitely, it's just a reflection of who I am.
Yes.
And your studio will be a reflection.
And it shows, by the way. Sorry to interrupt you. It shows that you're serious about what you're doing. Like you come into this studio and we've got all the right equipment set up.
Minus the video.
Right. But it shows like, oh, this guy is going to take this podcast seriously, like he's going to bring his A game,
Thank you. It's important to me, just being able to kind of go through this process of podcasting, creating a space where people from all different life forms, all different careers, all different nationalities, all different genders can come and share their story, their ups and downs of their life when we have all gone through it, right? Every single individual has gone through something in their life, but for you sharing your story, especially like in the music career and, the chances and the risks that you took to get to where you're at today, I truly hope that, some kid that's in high school or, college that's kind of going through the same shit that you went through is listening to this and gravitates towards it, and to be able to take that risk. And you know what? Sometimes we're up and sometimes we're down. For you, is there a failure that stands out in your life? Is there something that has happened to you that you're like, maybe I should have done it differently, but I did take something very positive from it?
Yeah.
You're like, fuck, no. No, I'm just joking.
No. I would say that a lot of personal failures come from mentality. That's been my experience. Whether the failure is sort of never shooting the shot, or whether the failure is shooting the shot but in the wrong way. I definitely have sort of mental viruses installed in my brain that kind of can jeopardize the process sometimes.
Yes.
So a lot of working through my 20s and in the real world and all has been trying to iron out a lot of those kinks.
For sure.
The ego is always a dangerous thing.
It's huge,
right?
man. It is huge.
Yeah. So, I've definitely learned from experience from burning myself a few times. Like you've got to, especially when everyone you're working with is a creative person. Like we all have our own sort of proprietary nature over our own creativity. Like this is my work. This is my work. This is right. So it's definitely, you run into circumstances where you butt heads because you're trying to assert a certain amount of control over a project, and that can land you in trouble if you're not careful with it, right?
Sure.
You've got to always be humble and be respectful of that sort of thing. So
absolutely,
that's definitely something that I've learned as I have gone along.
Yeah,
you've got to approach the work as a human.
Yes,
first,
of course.
And it's so hard because I was there where you're a struggling artist. You've just moved to the big city. You're struggling to pay your bills. It's so hard to adopt that mindset of generosity like that. It's so hard to do that because it's so counterintuitive. It's like what do they always tell you? Like you can't save a drowning person if they just pull you under with them, right? So you always have to be looking out for yourself like that. So it's natural to be kind of proprietary like that. You want to make your buck, you want to, get the credit, et cetera, et cetera. But, especially when you're starting out, that's almost like you can't do that as much because you want to be the guy or the girl in the room who is just, everyone is so excited to be working with them because they're so generous with what they bring to the project,
Absolutely.
And it's not all these stipulations. It's not like, we can be creative, but first, we've got set some clear boundaries, and there's a danger in bringing too much order to chaos.
Yes, absolutely. And it's once again, it's a dog eat dog world, right? But going through this, going through that kind of mental failure, right? Fuck, man, it happens to all of us. One of my friends gave me one of the best pieces of advice, and it's simply this: just fucking do it.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
I get in my head so much. I've had so many fucking awesome ideas. I spend so much time in the planning process, and then when it gets to that fucking end point of executing it, I'm so drained by everything that I did before that I just gave up. And that has happened countless times in my life. And so when thinking about this podcast right here, he told me that like a month or two ago, right? And he said, just fucking do it. You will figure it out along the way, but you have to put yourself out there. If you spend so much time in that planning process, you get so drained out. And I'm not saying like don't spend time in the planning process. That's definitely not what I'm saying. But especially starting out anything in your life, you have to fucking do it. And
because you learn as you go.
Exactly.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
Right? And you have people around you that are just willing to, like you today, right? When I was figuring out this video camera, right? To do the very first, video recording, I was having issues setting up the angles, right? And I was like, fuck, what the hell am I doing? And I felt bad that you were waiting, right? But you were so cool about it, right? And then eventually we figured it out, and it'll get better.
Yeah.
Right?
And now it's now you have that knowledge for the next time.
Exactly.
And like the next time it'll be like, there will be no indication that it was even an issue.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
it's like you do it. You have that vulnerability because it requires courage, because you need to be comfortable with looking stupid, with being vulnerable like that. I was just meeting with someone earlier today. I had this guy who builds studios, and he's like a sound engineer, and he's an acoustic technician. So for those who don't know, when you build a music studio, you need to acoustically treat the room so that the sound is optimal, because the sound waves come out of your speakers, and if the room is not good, they'll bounce all around, and it'll be super echoey, and it'll make it hard to mix. So you want to treat your room right. And so I had this guy come over, and he was giving me all this expertise. And me, like I've been in the music mindset for years, but if I had acted like I knew everything, I wouldn't have gotten nearly as much. So I had to like ask some questions that I thought were stupid. Like, what is this?
Yes.
And even if it was the most obvious thing in the world.
No, it's being vulnerable, putting yourself out there.
And so that's how you improve the whole game.
Absolutely. Deflating that ego, and for me, I was talking about this the other day, but it's like psilocybin mushrooms have helped me deflate my ego, because I used to have the biggest ego on the face of the planet. I thought when I walked into a room, I was the fucking shit, but I wasn't. I fucking definitely was not, right? And these tools have helped me unlock certain parts of my brain, and then now I have this newfound perspective on life. And so Brock 3-4 years ago would have just said fuck it with the video camera. I would have felt way too stupid, and I would have just started recording, right?
Totally.
But like, why you helped me out, you helped me set it up, and you were fucking so cool enough to just be like, hey, just figure it out, it's totally fine, we got time, bro. And that goes with so many things in your life. It's like, deflate that ego, and just be willing to put yourself out there and ask questions. Like, it's just so many people don't ask questions, right? So now you're at this next phase of your life where you're 2-3 years away from your 30s. Where do you think the 30s are going to take you, man?
Who knows, right?
No one knows.
No one knows. You've got to set your goals. You've got to have some direction that you're moving towards, but you also got to stay open to anything that may happen tangentially, right? So, there are career goals, there are personal goals. Like, I definitely want to be increasingly more and more stable, in terms of my lifestyle that's, supported by what I do. And, in terms of what I'm working on exactly, I'll chomp on anything that comes my way, just like the project I'm working right now is like a pivot from what I've been doing. And it came to me in just a fairly coincidental way, and we're running with it,
Nice.
So it's like, as long as I am, working on music, writing music, and putting art out there into the world that feels authentic from me, and as long as that is supporting, me and my family and my bills and everything, then like that's the dream to me.
There we go.
Honestly.
That's it. That's it. That's exactly it. Now for you, you said some goals. Do you write them down? Do you have a whiteboard that you write your goals down? Do you just keep them internally? Because, different people do different things.
Yeah. I do the, and this is of course fresh on my mind because it's the new year. And, so I do resolutions. I did them this year. I did them last year.
I want to hear them.
And they are written down. They're not, some of them are not super defined. Some of them are very specific, like, I want to make this amount of money this year or something, or I want to, travel for pleasure, 2-3 times this year, so, or like, one of them is I want to get my orange belt in Krav Maga.
Nice. Nice.
Which is coming up in about a month, actually.
There we go. Congrats, man.
Thanks, dude. Thanks, dude. So, some of them are super defined. Then others are more, abstract, sort of just kind of patterns of behavior that I want to, you can't flip a switch and they happen. I want to just sort of adapt over time into them, and one of them is, to be, try to eliminate kind of personal hypocrisy, from my life. Cause everyone's human. You have impulsive reactions to things. Someone cuts you off in traffic and you're like, fuck this guy.
This motherfucker.
And then you never think about how the fact that you do that.
Yes. Of course.
So I definitely, I think about those things and they really, they cause a lot of insecurity in me because it's like there's such a profound sadness that comes with being a hypocrite, right?
Yes.
Because you want to pity yourself, but you can't. You can't.
Because
you're a fucking hypocrite.
Yes.
Right? So there's so much cognitive dissonance that comes with that. And it's really, distracting from your life purpose,
For sure.
So a resolution of, one of those resolutions of mine for this year is like, let's like try to eliminate to the best of your ability that kind of internal hypocrisy where you without thinking, do the same things that you judge other people for.
Yes.
It's
key.
So
it's key. That's such a great point. I've never been a big person for like resolutions. I've always been like goal oriented.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this year was the first year that I set two of them for myself. One was working out 4 times a week.
Yes.
And I think that's important, the point of staying healthy, keeping your body moving. I never really did that. I would skateboard and snowboard and shit like that. But I'm at this point now in my life where, I'm 33 years old. I want to take really good care of my body. I want to be here for a long fucking time, know. And, life is way too short. And if you're, if you're brought with a whole bunch of, just issues health-wise, it sucks.
Yeah.
It really does. It fucking sucks. And so kind of keeping my body moving. And the other one is personal. I think it is very good to have resolutions that you also keep personal. That one is it's for you, right?
Yeah.
And I guess the third one is to this podcast, and I'm obviously doing it because you're on it right now.
There we go.
But outside of music and outside of creating this business, what other things do you like to do? Because I heard Krav Maga, but what else?
Yeah, I started Krav Maga. I've never done martial arts in my life, and I started last year, a little over a year ago. And
very nice.
And it was a lot of that motivation, like you're saying. Like I haven't, I didn't do a lot of sports growing up. I've never like been one that works out regularly, so I wanted to build that into my life.
Yeah.
So the Krav Maga thing is, and I'm starting to get into jujitsu a little bit too.
Good.
So that, and it's just invigorating.
Yeah.
I think a lot about this, like, what builds a meaningful life? Because I think you build a meaningful life from the ground up.
Yes.
It's
important.
There's sort of the traditional, sort of theological theory of like meaning comes from the top down. Like it's ordained and I mean, absolute respect to you if you have that mindset, but that can never work on its own.
No. It's from the ground up, baby.
So it's from the ground up. I started thinking last year, like, what are the wells of meaning that you can tap into that are regenerative, like they're sustainable, like thinking about like, you know, renewable resources, right? Like what are the renewable resources that build up meaning in your life?
Yeah.
You know, because you can adopt the attitude of hedonism and pursue sex and pursue drugs and you know, and whatever. And you get a lot out of that, but they're not renewable resources.
Not at all.
I mean, they are in the sense that you can always find a new
of course
person to hook up with or whatever.
Yeah,
but
realistically,
it's diminishing marginal returns.
Yes.
Right? So what are the wells of meaning that you can tap into where they're regenerative like that? And so martial arts I've found is one for me. You know, and it's like you're super drained after each workout session, but then you're so invigorated to go back again.
100%.
So it's like that. And music is one for me as well. You know, I like to, you know, a resolution of mine that I'm doing for the second time now is, you know, I like to go hiking once a month.
Awesome. We should go sometime, man.
Yeah.
I'll fucking go.
Man.
I'm so down.
Would love that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. There's so many great spots around here too.
Yeah, there is. For sure. So next time you go, let me know prior.
Great.
We'll go.
Okay, fantastic. A buddy of mine and I, a few weeks ago, we went out kind of towards the Angeles National Forest and to one of the peaks, and we hiked up. I'm trying to remember the name of the peak. Mount Lukens.
Okay.
It was called. And you know, we got some snow. You know,
no way.
You can see in the distance there's that snow on the top of those peaks out in the distance. So we went to one of those and we hiked up and we caught the snow. You know,
you made it up to the snow. So it was like was like dirt to eventually snow.
It was literally there was a line. Yeah. So
that's so fucking cool, dude.
Snow in SoCal. It's not always a myth.
No, it's not. No, definitely not. So and then you also said traveling too, right? Like you want to do 2, 3? What?
Yeah, that's a resolution of mine to do more of. I can't say that it's a hobby yet because I traditionally have not traveled a lot. You know, given during the year, most of what I do is like visiting family and stuff. Right. But yeah, I want to explore some new places because it's it's one of those things you always tell yourself to do, and then eventually you just will have never done it. Right?
No, absolutely. You know, you want to be able. You know, a goal my wife and I have is to visit 6 of the 7 continents. Right.
Dope.
And we've already gone to 3. And you know, traveling has been such a huge part of my life. My wife and I, so when we got married, we've been together for 16 years. She was in charge of the wedding, right? She got to plan the wedding. She got to do it exactly how she fucking wanted. And I was in charge of the honeymoon, right?
Yeah.
And for me, it was a dream come true because we traveled for 40 days. We went to seven countries, 11 cities. So listen, this is where we started, right? We flew to London, and we were in London for a couple of days. Then we took the train into Paris, and we were there for a few days. And mind you, we did Airbnbs the entire time. So we stayed like in the culture, rented out the whole place. It was fucking dope. So took the train to Paris, right? And then from Paris, we went to Amsterdam. I remember the moment getting so as a kid, right? I mean, cannabis is like fucking legal in 11 states now, right? In California, it's just everywhere. But growing up, it was like I remember getting the High Times magazine, and like Amsterdam was like the shit, right? And I remember the moment getting off of the train, and I just started fucking crying. I was like, oh my god, I'm fucking here, right? And then you come to find it wasn't even about the cannabis, right? It wasn't even about it was just like being there because I never thought I was ever going to experience it, right? And so then from there, we went to Amsterdam, we went to Berlin, which was awesome. And then a bucket list of mine was to drive on the Autobahn. So we rented an Audi A6 and we drove from Berlin down to Munich. Oh, fuck, it was so, you go so fast that you totally feel like you're floating, dude.
Ooh, yeah.
It was so cool. And then from Munich, we took the train into Venice, Italy. And then from Venice, we took the train down to Rome. I remember I saved a joint for this moment, and the Airbnb we had was really freaking cool. And it was like once you walk out the door, you walk around this corner, and the Colosseum is right there.
Okay,
and you just. I was just like so like, oh my, like it was just fucking insane, you know, seeing it for the first time. And so her and I, well, I was the one smoking, but we like walked around and I smoked this joint. It was really fucking cool.
That honestly sounds like the best place in the world to smoke.
It was so fucking cool, and the food is amazing.
Yep.
God, just in America, pasta and gelato, nothing like it is in Italy. It's so different.
Yeah.
It's so good. And then we took
my brother and I, and then get back to your story, please.
Yeah, it's fine.
Because we are Italian. We're Italian and German.
Nice.
But we have never been to Italy.
You guys gotta go, man.
Yeah, my brother and I have and we know the exact town that we're from, and it's a small town named Caporciano. And
Okay.
it's, like you look it up online, and it's like the kind of small Italian town that you would expect like a 1960s black and white film to be shot.
Dude, you guys got to go there.
So we're gonna we have the dream of doing the trip where we get an there's a beautiful Airbnb there.
Okay.
And you go and it's just like rolling hills and I can't wait.
Dude, you have to do it. These are things that you have to do. You work hard, you save your fucking money, and you go, right?
Yep.
So go.
Yep.
You know, as you're telling me the story right now, you gotta fucking go.
Okay, so after Italy.
Yeah, so we're still on. We then took the train into Naples and then went to Pompeii, which is just fucking crazy. Just like seeing all of that, you know, with Mount Vesuvius blowing up, and you can just see the remnants of still, you know, all these years later.
What's the state of those ruins at this point?
I mean, it's just fascinating, the technology they had back then, like running water and baths and pools and like toilets that they had. And I think they've uncovered like a third of it, and they're keeping like the rest. I could be wrong, right?
Sure.
But I know all of it is still not covered, and you know, it just happened so quick. And you know, the remnants of, you know, you see like a dog, right? And you literally fucking see the dog. Like it looks like a fucking dog, right?
Yeah.
It was so cool.
I saw this meme online that of course you have no idea this is true, but it's like a shot of the ruins of Pompeii, and there's like a, you know, what's the word? There's like a, you know, the preserved body of a man, and he's like grabbing his dick.
I'm sure. I don't doubt it.
And so it's like, you know, this dude living his best life. He saw the world crumbling around to him, and he decided to yank one more out.
I don't doubt it. There's literally parts where you see it's like dirt, right? And it reminded me of like a 3-layer cake, like split, where you can see all the layers, and you can like see like remnants of like a fucking house and shit like that. It's so incredible to see. It was really fucking cool. I fucked up. It was I fucked up twice, like planning the whole entire thing. But I remember going to because it was the only hotel that we stayed at. And I go there, and I wish I remember the fucking name. They were so cool. We go to check in, and they're like, we don't see your name. And I'm like, what are you talking about? You don't see my name? And they're having like the biggest festival that they have like once a year in the town in Pompeii, okay. Right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, what do you mean you don't have the thing? And they look, and I booked it like a week later or like the next month, right? And I told her, I'm like, we're here on our honeymoon. Like, and I explained everything to her. And she just happened to be the daughter of the owner of the hotel. Mm-hmm. The only room that they had was the like presidential suite. It was the number one room. It had a spa in it, all of it. This room was like thousands of dollars a night, right? And it wasn't booked out. They graciously fucking gave us the room for 2 nights, no extra charge.
Amazing.
God, I wish I knew the name, man. The dad like picked us up. He took us to the place. Like, it was so fucking cool. Fuck. If I can find it, I'll put it in the show notes of this podcast, because shout out to them. Like, we would have been fucked because it was the busiest time to be in Pompeii. Everything was sold out.
Sure.
So, like, really shout out to them. And it worked out really well. Then after that, we took a plane to Athens, Greece. And we were there for a few days, which was beautiful. We flew back to London. This is the second fuck up that I did. I flew back to London for a Happy Hardcore festival. Growing up, I liked Happy Hardcore.
Yeah.
And I thought they were having this concert in London. And so I stayed in the town that I was supposed to be in, or the area that I was supposed to be in. And we get dressed. We're ready to go. God, I'm so dumb. Come to find out, the street or city that it was supposed to, or the street that it was supposed to be on was actually, it wasn't in London. It was like 4 hours up in northern fucking England, dude.
Yeah.
And so we flew to London for no reason other than to go to this thing.
Wow.
And it wasn't happening. My wife was just like laughing and digging it at me, still to this day. But, it was still great to be back in London. And then from there, we flew to Barcelona for 4 days.
That's a good one.
Fuck, dude. It was amazing. Barcelona, by far. I mean, like if you talk about like a country, the best country out of the whole trip was Italy. The best city that we went to was Barcelona. I mean, cannabis is fucking, it's legal, or there's like this loophole or whatever. So they got like 200 cafes, kind of like Amsterdam style. And it's like right on the beach, and we rented electric bikes and we went everywhere. It was so cool. I remember the last night we're eating just like amazing dinner, and they're like right on the beach, and we're just both crying our fucking eyes out, man. Yeah. But by far, just insanity. It was an amazing fucking trip, right? And it was just an experience of a lifetime. And so getting back to the point of view, right, is like, just do it, man. Just fucking do it. Save the money that you got to save and go, because at any moment the lights can come out, right? And whenever that time comes, for me personally, I want to say that, I've, just gone to all these beautiful, amazing places, and I want the same for you, and I want all the same for the people listening. And I know people out there, are struggling and they can't do it, and I truly am sorry, and I feel bad for these individuals. And, if you can just even save, $1 a month to one day at least go to that one place of your fucking dreams, do it. Right?
The way out is one tiny little step at a time.
Exactly, right? It's one tiny little step at a time. And for you, it's the one tiny little step at a time that you have been able to make. And the courage to be able to fucking take the leap, right? To take that leap at 22 years old, to come out to Los Angeles, California, which is a dog-eat-dog world, and do it. And you've made it, man. You fucking made it. And I know that you still got a lot to go. Yeah. And I want you to come back in every so often, and so we can fucking catch up, and so people can listen and hear your story, because you got a great story and you're very positive, right? So as we fucking wrap this up, man, if you look back at your life, if you look back at everything that you have gone through personally, who's like your number one person? Who's your hero? Who's your mentor? Who's your person that stands out most, that's been able to help you throughout all the experiences in your life? And,
dude, 100% got to say the parents.
There we go.
Gotta say the parents.
Fuck yes.
And maybe that comes as no surprise given the conversation we've been having.
Yes.
Yeah. This is something I've been thinking about a lot recently, actually. Because the older you get, the more, you get resistant to the control that your parents exert on your life and all. And so, obviously the older you get, the more you become independent and stuff, to the point where you're an adult and you're in the real world. Because we have our conflicts, like we bash heads occasionally, like, everybody's strong-minded, has strong opinions, and so there's inevitable arguments that happen, and you've got to do your own thing, of course. Yeah. Like you can't keep living under your parents' influence. But the big thing that I've been thinking about recently is like the longer that you accept that presence in your life, through the conflict, like the longer that you almost stay grateful for the conflict. And I don't want to be insensitive here, because, when I talk about conflict with my parents, I talk about relatively small scale stuff. Like people have legitimate conflicts with their parents. People, so this is nothing in that realm. You have to get yourself away from toxic relationships. So that's a whole other thing. Yeah. But, within the kind of constructive criticism realm, like the longer that you can kind of tolerate that presence in your life and be grateful for it and accept it, like the further it pushes you, because I'll call my parents up and be like, hey, I just did this thing. I just managed this accomplishment, and you want the unconditional pat on the back. Yeah. Like you've succeeded. That is all you need to do for life. Right. Like,
yes.
As much as you want that, you get that pushback of like, because they're always like the judges, for me personally, they're always the judges of like my potential. Are you living up to your potential? Are you doing everything that you can be doing? And as frustrating as that can be, because you're faced with your own, the pressures of your own potential, which is like,
Yeah.
it can be very, it can freeze you up, right?
Yeah.
The longer you can like accept that and tolerate that, it's like the further it pushes you.
God, that's so awesome, man.
So-
That's so awesome. I personally lost my pops at 17, and to hear your story of your parents, I hope that one day when my wife and I have kids, that I can be half the parent, I guess, that your parents were, and how influential they were to your life. And it's just really nice to hear. Because like you said, you don't want to be insensitive to the people that went through shit with their parents, that toxic fucking relationship. Yeah, that sucks. That
Yep.
fucking sucks.
Absolutely.
But at the end of the day, everyone's story is everyone's story. And for you to hear how influential they were, it makes me feel good inside, dude. It really does. Nice. So, shout out to the folks, man.
Shout out to the folks.
Shout out to the folks. And
Right.
next time your dad is in town, you better bring him on.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you so much, brother. I really appreciate you on.
Dude, my pleasure.
You're an
Thanks for having
awesome
me
fucking
on.
guest. Have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful day, bro.
Yes.
Everyone listening, have a wonderful night. Thanks for listening to Back to Your Story. Peace out, motherfuckers.
My man.